Today we're going to learn how to master data manipulation in R using the Dplyr package. So what is Dplyr and what can it do for you? Well, Dplyr isn't just any old R package. It can be thought of as a grammar of data manipulation. It's designed to provide a consistent set of functions, or verbs, that help you to solve the most common data manipulation challenges in R. Before we take a look at these different verbs, let's look at what they have in common. So most of the Dplyr verbs are applied to a data frame. So this data frame is typically the first argument which we give to the function. And the subsequent arguments typically describe which columns we want to operate on, which we supply using the variable names without quotes. The output is always a new data frame. Dplyr's verbs can be organized into groups depending on what they operate on. For example, some of Dplyr's functions like arrange, filter, and slice operate on the rows of a data frame. Others, like pull, select, and mutate, operate on the columns, and others, like group by and summarise, operate on groups of rows at a time. So in this video, we'll cover the most important verbs that can operate on each of these different structures. But before we do that, let's also familiarise ourselves with the pipe function. You might have seen this function before. The pipe is imported from the magrittr package, but it's almost always used together with Dplyr functions, as a tidy and intuitive way of linking the output of one function to the input of another. If you're not already in the habit of using the pipe function, you've probably written some code that looks a little like this. You've applied some function to your data, saved the result in a temporary variable, only to apply another function, save the result of that, apply another, save the result again, and finally you have the output you want. Or maybe you've tried to apply all of these functions together to save space. But without the pipe function, you can end up with something barely readable because of all the parentheses. A more intuitive and readable way of applying multiple functions in a sequence like this is to use the pipe operator. We'll come across the pipe again later in this video. For now, let's open up the RStudio console. To demonstrate how the Dplyr functions work, we're going to be using the Star Wars dataset as an example. The Star Wars dataset is built into the Dplyr package, so if you want to follow along with this tutorial, you can simply load it. Just make sure that you have the Dplyr package already installed and loaded into your environment. Let's run head to take a look at the Star Wars data frame. We can see that it's actually in the form of what we call a tibble, which is just a special variation on the data frame formation. But if you're more used to working with normal data frames, you can simply convert it to a normal data frame using the data.frame function. But note that all of the Dplyr functions we're going to look at today should be able to work on both tibbles and data frames. So, we can see that the data contains a number of different categorical and numeric columns describing various features of the different Star Wars characters. We're going to start our exploration of Dplyr by looking at a few of the verbs that can operate on the rows of a data frame, such as arrange, filter, and slice. Let's start with the arrange function. Remember that all Dplyr verbs are applied to data frames in the same way, in that the name of the data frame is the first argument given to the function, and this is followed by an additional argument, which in this case is going to be the name of the column or feature that we want to arrange the data frame by. Let's, for example, arrange the data frame in order of the character's height. If we run this, we end up with a version of the data frame where the rows have been arranged to be in order of the character's height. If we want to arrange this in descending order rather than ascending order, so to have the tallest to the shortest, we can adjust this by simply adding the desc operator. Next, let's try the filter function. Filter can be used to filter the rows of a data frame based on the values of a particular feature. For example, if we want to filter the data for masculine characters, we would simply write filter Star Wars gender equals masculine. We can also filter on more than one column at a time. For example, we can also add and species equals human, so filtering the data frame for characters which are both masculine and human. Next, let's try the slice function. The slice function is also used to subset rows of a data frame, but instead of doing so based on the value of a particular feature, it subsets rows based on their positions in the data frame. For example, running slice *wars 1 to 10 will subset the first 10 rows of the data frame. Running 10 to 12 will subset row 10 to row 12. But there are also some additional slice functions. For example, slice head and slice tail can be used to extract the start and the end rows in the data frame. Slice min and slice max can also be used to extract rows which have the minimum or maximum values for a specified feature. And slice sample can be used to take a random sample of a selected number of rows from the data frame. So those were functions operating on rows of a data frame. Next, let's look at some of the verbs that we can apply to columns of a data frame. We'll look at pull, select, rename, and mutate. Pull is the function that you'll use if you want to look at a single column in the data frame. For example, if we want to extract the eye color column, we can simply run pull *wars eye color. If we instead want to subset a number of columns rather than just one, we want to instead use the select function. Here we can run, for example, select *wars and then specify multiple columns. For example, name, eye color, hair color, species. If we want to rename a particular column, we can use the function rename. We can run, for example, rename *wars character equals name. And this will create a data frame where we've renamed the first column, which was called name, to be instead called character. The mutate function can be used to either create new columns, modify existing columns, or delete existing columns, so it can be particularly powerful. For example, running mutate *wars gender equals null will remove the gender column from the data frame. Let's say all of the characters have suddenly grown 10 centimeters, and we want to add a new column reporting this new height. We can use mutate here too. We can run mutate *wars, and let's call this new column new height, and let it equal height plus 10. So this will add a new column to the data frame called new height, which will hold the adjusted values, the old height plus 10. Let's say we also realized that all of the characters which were noted to have yellow eye color actually had green eyes, and we want to update the eye color column to replace all instances of yellow with green. We can also use the mutate verb here. To do this, we could, for example, first create a vector which will contain the new eye colors. One way of doing this might be to use the if-else function. So if-else *wars eye color is yellow, green, *wars eye color. So what this means is that if the eye color is yellow, we will replace that value with green. Otherwise, we will keep the original eye color. And then we can simply write mutate *wars eye color is new eye color, and this will give us an updated version of the data frame where the eye color has been modified. So those were some of the most useful functions operating on rows and columns of data frames. Before we move on to look at some functions operating on groups or of rows, let's test out that pipe function that we mentioned earlier to see how we can combine multiple Dplyr functions together. So you'll remember that the pipe is made up of the percentage sign followed by the forward-facing triangle bracket and another percentage sign. Let's say we want to subset the dataset for male characters using the filter function, and after that we want to arrange the data according to age or birth year. We can easily combine these two steps using the pipe operator. We simply write *wars pipe filter, sex equals male, pipe, arrange, birth year. Finally, we can add another pipe if we want to pull the character name. And the resulting list of names will contain all male characters ordered by age from youngest to eldest. Finally, let's try out some functions that operate on groups of rows. We'll also be using the pipe in these examples. So, two of the most important of these functions operating on groups of rows are the group by and the summarise function. And often you'll see these two functions used together with the help of the pipe. The group by function is used to group the data based on one or more variables, and the summarise function is used to summarise each group down to a single row. So I know this can sound a bit complex, so let's see what this means with some simple examples. Suppose we want to find the average height and age of the characters, and we want to find this separately depending on the character sex, so to find the average height and age of all female characters and all male characters and all non-female non-male. So to do this, we can combine the functions group by and summarise. So first we write group by sex, and then within the summarise function we specify mean age equals mean birth year excluding NA, and then mean height equals mean height, again excluding NA, and this will return a new data frame where the age and height are summarised into the average separated by the character's sex. Okay, so let's look at one other example. Suppose we want to group the data according to home world and then summarise it to report the maximum height of the characters from each home world. To do this, similarly, we would write group by home world, then summarise max height equals max height. Okay, so those are just a few of the most commonly used functions available within the Dplyr package. I hope this video has given you some confidence to make use of Dplyr in your own data manipulation tasks. And if you're interested in learning some more advanced Dplyr functions, then feel free to check out some of the links that I've provided below. And I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Thanks a lot for being here.